They will never tell you this truth openly because most men are too weak to handle it. Lust is the oldest leash humanity ever forged, and once it wraps around your neck, you don't lead, you are led. Every empire that crumbled, every king mocked, every man who fell from glory lust was somewhere in the story. Machiavelli knew this. In The Prince, he wasted no breath on romance or passion. He wrote of power, of fear, of loyalty and betrayal. He saw clearly that rulers who mastered desire secured their crowns, while those who chased indulgence were dethroned not by armies, but by whispers. Lust makes you predictable, and predictability is weakness. Ask yourself honestly, what do men destroy their lives for? Rarely hunger, rarely survival, rarely even war. It is lust. Men gamble away fortunes for it. Leaders compromise nations in its name. Ordinary men betray their values, their standards, even their futures because of it. A man enslaved by lust is not dangerous, he is easy prey. Respect is never built on indulgence. It is built on scarcity, on self-restraint. When you deny lust, people begin to see you differently. You no longer resemble another man groveling for crumbs of validation. You begin to look untouchable. Even your enemies, especially your enemies, cannot ignore a man who refuses the most common bait in history. You've seen this already, haven't you? The man who enters a room desperate to impress, desperate for attention, desperate to be noticed. He is invisible, even laughable. His moves are transparent, his words predictable, his presence hollow. Why? Because everyone sees the leash around his neck. His weakness leaks from every gesture. But then there is the other kind of man, the one who walks in seeking nothing, chasing no one, lowering himself for no one. His silence weighs heavier than others' speeches. His indifference pulls eyes without effort. This is the man people respect, even fear. Because denying lust is not just refusal, it is transformation into something formidable. Machiavelli would remind you that the man who cannot rule himself cannot rule anything else. If lust rules you, your crown is made of glass. One strike and it shatters. The world may tempt you with pleasures, with seductions, with endless distractions, but when you refuse, when you stand unmoved, you show something dangerous. You cannot be bought. Look at history's examples. Kings who drowned in women were mocked as weaklings, their names stained with ridicule. But kings who mastered indulgence, who denied it, were feared as ruthless. Julius Caesar was destroyed not by soldiers but by lust and betrayal. Mark Antony lost his power chasing Cleopatra. Samson lost his strength through Delilah. History repeats because weakness repeats. Through Machiavelli's eyes, the pattern is undeniable. An enemy doesn't always need armies. He only needs to seduce you. A rival doesn't have to fight if he can bait you with pleasure. Lust disguises itself as reward, but in truth, it is a cage willingly walked into by fools. Here's the paradox. When you deny lust, when you rise above it, when you control it, suddenly the world that mocked you begins to bow. The same enemies who wanted you distracted and disarmed now must face a man they cannot manipulate, and a man who cannot be manipulated is dangerous in every room. Who do you respect more? The man who brags about his conquests, drowning himself in lust like a fool, desperate for validation? Or the man who doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't lower himself, yet still draws eyes, still commands presence, still makes people lean in? The answer is obvious. Respect flows to the man who does not need it. Understand, this lust is bigger than physical craving. Lust is hunger for approval, obsession with being liked, desperation for applause. Machiavelli would warn you that all of these are chains. The man who chases applause becomes a clown. The man who chases desire becomes a slave. The man who chases validation becomes disposable. But the man who denies, he doesn't chase, he attracts. He doesn't beg, he commands. He doesn't get played, he sets the game. This is the sovereign mindset. This is the Machiavellian lesson. Self-control is not denial of pleasure. It is conversion of weakness into unshakable strength. Machiavelli respected not the intelligence that sparkled, but the intelligence that governed. He respected the quiet strategist, the man who could position instead of plead, who could see traps and smile at them with disdain. Once you deny lust, you are no longer part of the herd, you stand above it. Look at societies through this lens. The masses are kept docile through indulgence, bread and circuses, distractions and endless pleasures. They are tamed not by chains but by cravings. But the few who resist, the few who starve indulgence, the few who sharpen themselves in restraint, those are the ones who rise and eventually lead. This is why even your enemies respect you when you deny lust. Because they cannot move you with the cheap tools they use to move others. They cannot bait you, predict you, or use you. In a world where most men sell their souls for a moment of indulgence, the man who refuses becomes untouchable. And here is the harsh truth. Denying lust does not make you less human. It makes you more formidable. You stop being pulled by impulse and instead are guided by strategy. You master lust the way a strategist masters a battlefield, by starving its supply, shaping the terrain, and dictating the clock. Desire is not an enemy to be shouted down, but a force to be conscripted. Give it a job that serves the crown, or exile it beyond the walls. The weak chase stimulation and rename it freedom, the strong ration stimulation and call it sovereignty. Machiavelli's law is simple. Set the terms of engagement or become the terrain others trample. If you are available to everyone, you belong to anyone. Build a hierarchy that never bends, mission above appetite, standards above chemistry, time above temptation. If a desire threatens the mission, treat it as an insurgent, not a guest. You don't argue with insurgents, you neutralize them. Decide in daylight what you refuse at night. Your rules must be drafted under a clear mind, not a clouded pulse. If you wait for the storm to set policy, the storm will govern you. Adopt the lion and fox protocol, immovable on principles, invisible in enforcement. The fox keeps you from traps. The lion keeps you from begging for release. Be gentle with people, but granite with boundaries. Control visibility like a state secret. Scarcity is not arrogance, it's armor. When access shrinks, your value condenses and your frame becomes gravity instead of noise. Use distance to create weight. Close proximity without purpose dilutes aura and invites tests. Intentional absence turns curiosity into compliance. People test where lines are, give them marble, not fog. Vague boundaries are open invitations to negotiation. Clear limits are silent lessons that don't require speeches. Publish a presence policy and live it quietly, respectful to all, reachable to few, intimate with none who pull at your leash. Let the protocols speak while you conserve energy. Mystery is not performance, it's disciplined emission. When flirtation arrives as a probe, treat it like a debt collector at the palace gate. Smile, decline services, and keep the gates clean. Charm that cannot enter your schedule, cannot enter your system. Replace flattered reactions with standard responses. Appreciate it busy, not my focus. I keep my energy on the mission. Velvet phrasing, steel intent, elegance without access. Never justify a boundary, demonstrate it. Explanations invite trials, while patterns erase negotiations. Show the line, protect the line, forget the debate. Strategic silence beats clever speeches. You trained a room with your absence more than with your arguments. Where you don't go says more than anything you could say there. Pace is power, speed is begging. Answer on your clock, and you make the world synchronize to your rhythm. Anyone who insists on rush is buying leverage with urgency. Build a scarcity protocol for your time. Deep work blocks guarded like treasury, no late-night corridors, no just 5 minutes. Your calendar is your fortress. Defend the gate or lose the city. Architect the environment so it keeps you honest when your mood won't. Remove bait from sight, and your willpower multiplies without effort. Systems beat self-talk on bad days. Purge the digital moat. Aggressive filters. Do not disturb rituals. DM triage that routes novelty to nowhere. Algorithms sell bait. You buy your sovereignty back with settings. Unfollow what weakens you. Mute what hijacks you. Block what disrespects you. Peace is not something you find, it is something you enforce. Your feed is a mirror of your future. Practice dopamine austerity until your baseline is calm. Fewer cheap highs, more slow victories. What you starve loses its voice. What you train becomes your instinct. Transmute cravings into crafts, iron, code, language, design, deal flow, strategy. Build altars where your hands and mind make proof. Output is the only antidote that scales. Train the body until restraint becomes muscle memory. High output burns off stray hunger before it recruits allies. The furnace that runs hot leaves fewer sparks for mischief. Sleep like a sovereign, wake like a soldier. Morning austerity lowers evening appetite. Order your first hours and the last hours obey. Treat celibacy as a campaign, not a slogan. Name its start, end, purpose, and rules of engagement. Give it metrics so discipline can celebrate progress, not just endure it. Institute a 3-layer defense: friction, substitution, escalation. Make the wrong choice costly, the right choice convenient, and your next best option immediately available. Codify a 2 moves rule for seductive chaos. Step back, then step out. No third step, no clever exception. If you need a loophole, you've already lost leverage. Memorize the 3 tells of weaponized attention: manufactured urgency, selective privacy, and flattering ambiguity. If someone deploys all 3, they are not flirting, they are fishing. When the room heats up, switch to the observer's balcony. Notice tempo, triggers, and tells. The fastest exit from a trap is the vantage point above it. Reward yourself with status that compounds, not pleasures that evaporate. Tools, books, mentors, health, assets, team luxuries that pay rent in competence and control. Let results replace romance as your aura. Reputation rooted in delivery outranks charisma rooted in hunger. People respect the engine far more than the horn. Convert attention into leverage, not indulgence. Funnel curiosity into deals, alliances, and options. Your frame should monetize heat, not melt inside it. Adopt the coin flick test for decisions under fire. Would you make this choice if no one knew? If the answer leans on audience, you're buying applause, not power. Write a protocol for relapse before you need it. Stop, isolate, debrief, repair, upgrade. Shame is a tax. Learning is an investment. You don't spiral, you study and strengthen. Replace guilt with audits. Weekly boundary review, monthly relationship cull, quarterly environment reset. What you measure, you command. Honor contracts with your future self. Every yes today is a lease on tomorrow's resources. Default to no, then force proposals to earn their rent. Keep a council of cold minds, mentors, or peers who don't flatter your weakness. Give them permission to veto your heat. Outsourced calm beats insourced chaos. Use language that hardens identity. I don't, not I can't. Policy, not preference. The tongue that commands the self trains the spine to follow. Protect symbols that signal sovereignty. A clean desk, a closed door, a disciplined calendar, a high-integrity wardrobe. Props are not vanity. They are protocols made visible. Make your money untemptable. Automated investments, locked accounts, boring budgets. Lust feeds on liquidity. Starve it with structure. In negotiations, never trade standards for chemistry. If the price of access is your frame, the deal is theft. Walk away as if exits were built for you, because they are. Hold the triad of respect, distance, discipline, and results. Distance creates mystery. Discipline creates reliability. Results create inevitability. The trifecta generates aura without noise. Let your no be untheatrical. Drama is a door. Calm is a wall. Quiet refusal denies the other side anything to push against. Remember the order of war: position, pressure, then pace. You choose the ground, you limit the options, you dictate the tempo. Lust loses when you own the map. When praise arrives, bank it as data, not as oxygen. Gratitude is fine, dependence is fatal, applause is a crowd's reflex, not your compass. Study the few who stayed dangerous across decades. Their secret is not a hack, it is boredom with bait. When temptation feels predictable, power is not built on what you can take, it is built on what you can refuse. When others trade their edge for appetite, you compound leverage by staying expensive. The city learns your price when you stop renting yourself out to its noise. Respect follows the same algorithm everywhere: standards, scarcity, consequence, and mercy in that order. Standards define the border, scarcity protects it, consequence enforces it, and mercy, when earned, crowns it. Reverse that order, and you become entertainment. Your aura is an economy. Attention is your currency, access your supply chain, and discipline your central bank. Inflation begins the moment you spend yourself to be liked. To lead, you must first become impossible to bait. The courtroom of public opinion will feed you applause as a sedative. The palace of private decisions will test you with honeyed knives. Pass both trials, or be ruled by lesser men with louder appetites. Craft a doctrine of appearances, because Machiavelli was merciless about optics. Appear gracious while remaining governed, appear accessible while staying selective, appear forgiving while tabulating patterns. Appearances disarm your enemies long enough for your standards to decide their fate. Build a treaty template for all relationships. Purpose stated, boundaries plain, incentives aligned, consequences automated. Sweet personalities are welcome, sweet traps are not. If someone resists clarity, they were planning to bill you later. When chemistry argues with criteria, let criteria win without ceremony. You don't owe a press conference. Memorize the triad of respect tests. How they handle your no, how they treat your time, how they speak about absent people. Fail any two, and you are granting audience to chaos. Reputation maintenance is war by quieter means. Starve rumor with silence, but feed truth with consistent delivery. Over time, the ledger becomes so heavy that gossip sounds like fiction. Never negotiate from hunger. Delay any decision that tastes like relief. Desperation signs treaties that discipline must later annul at a cost. Create a storm protocol for the three classic traps: privacy, novelty, and flattery. If two arrive together, step back. If all three arrive, step out. No clever exceptions, no situational poetry. Fring tests often come disguised as jokes. Laugh gently, then restate your terms with calm eyes. The room remembers the man who smiles while moving the furniture back into place. Set rites of passage instead of vibes. Shared work before shared access. Time under pressure before time in private. Aligned goals before aligned schedules. Rituals filter better than intuition. Learn the calm veto. Not aligned, not my policy, not on my calendar. Short, unarguable, emotionally inert. Walls don't debate, they redirect traffic. Install redundancy for your resolve. Mentor veto, accountability ledger, environment locks. Your future self should not rely on your present mood to carry the throne. Weaponize boredom with bait. When predictable temptations become dull, mastery is taking root. The mind that yawns at its old leash is ready to design empires. Choose devotions that metabolize desire. Iron that forgives nothing, craft that flatters no excuses, study that grinds fantasy into models. Sovereignty loves hobbies that do not love you back. Think in decades while you move in days. A 10-year horizon makes tonight's flattery invisible on the map. Long arcs dissolve short appetites. Institute a quarterly cull with royal indifference. Subtract draining inputs, obsolete roles, and expired loyalties. Every new standard requires a funeral. Preside with kindness and finality. Hold your language accountable to your crown. I don't reprograms identity. I can't begs for pity. Policy delegates strength from your whims to your office. Make capability your charisma. Beauty fades, charm fatigues, novelty rots, but reliability compounds. The quiet man who delivers becomes folklore. Practice the diplomacy of distance. You can be gracious from the balcony, you can be generous without opening the vault. The kindest boundaries are the clearest ones. When you slip, and you will use the sovereign's 4-step. Stop, isolate, audit, upgrade. No self-novels, no tragic odes. Extract the blueprint and weld it into the wall. Turn victories into infrastructure, not stories. A medal is a memo to build another regiment. Results are bricks. Pride is perfume. Guard your mornings as sacred borders. What you do before the city wakes decides whether the city can touch you. Win the first hour and the last will obey. Curate a council of cold minds, elders of craft, peers of consequence, juniors of fire. Let them challenge your drift and critique your theatre. Princes rot in echo chambers. Build assets that outlast your appetite, health that resists fatigue, skills that mint optionality, capital that buys time, teams that survive your absence. Lust steals moments, leverage buys eras. Make your yes a covenant and your no a policy. A covenant turns allies into compounding force. A policy keeps opportunists from renting space in your day. Do not let kindness become credit extended to chaos. Forgive privately, remember precisely, and we admit rarely. Mercy without memory is an invitation to repeat. Master the optics of exit. Leave rooms with silence. Leave deals with data. Leave people with dignity.